Hi people, welcome to the Run Testers, and in this video we are pitching the On Cloudstratus 3 up against an old favourite, the On Cloudmonster. Now On says that the On Cloudmonster is perfect for energising any run, from an easy 5k to a 20 kilometre training run, while the On Cloudstratus is billed as a no compromise cushion shoe that you can use to double your run. That's their words, but basically it's a shoe that's made for eating distance in comfort. So which one is best? Well, we've given them the multi-tester treatment to find out, and we're going to tell you in this video. So let's start with some quick comparison details. Then when it comes to stack height, On doesn't list an official stack for either of these shoes. I don't know why they don't do that, but they don't. But they're both packing around 30 mils or more in the heel and have a 6 mil drop. The On Cloudstratus is a heavier shoe at 11.3 ounces or 320 grams in a UK men's 8.5, while the On Cloudmonster comes at 9.8 ounces or 278 grams. Price-wise, the Cloudstratus 3 comes in at £170 or $180. That's £20 and $10 pricier than the On Cloudmonster at £150 or $170. Moving on to a quick shoe whip round then. Well, these are both big shoes, kind of on the maximal side of things. The midsole stacks are quite similar in terms of height and overall cushioning, but while the Cloudmonster has a single big stack of helium foam clouds, the Cloudstratus has gone for a double stack of helium clouds, which is something we're seeing on a lot of On's kind of more cushioned shoes. Sandwiched in that midsole, and the Cloudstratus has a nylon speed board, while the Cloudmonster has a P-back speed board in there. And both of these shoes have pretty substantial rockers. Up top, the Cloudstratus has these perforated uppers that are a bit more airy than the Cloudmonster, which is almost kind of lined and a little more dense. There's notably more plushness in the Cloudstratus 2, with the heel collar padding and the tongues having significantly more padding than you'll get in the Cloudmonster. The Stratus, the big difference here, it also has this external heel clip to add a bit of extra support. The Cloudmonster just has an internal heel counter, really, to give you that kind of heel hold. Flip them over and the Stratus has a bit more outsole rubber coverage, and it also gets rid of the big channel that you'll find on the Monster, which is a stone catcher in here, a plague that sort of affects a lot of On's shoes.
We'll start with the fit. I found that the Cloudmonster came up pretty short in the foot. These are both a UK 5, but I've definitely got a little bit more room in the front at the top of the foot in the Cloudstratus than I have in the On Cloudmonster. And to be honest, I think I'd be tempted to go up half a size in the Cloudmonster. It just definitely seems to come up a little bit shorter from my point of view. I wouldn't be tempted to do the same in the Cloudstratus number 3. So definitely go up half a size, a little bit shorter, but both kind of roomy toe boxes, but I just wish I had a little bit more in this.
I think the Cloudstratus is noticeably plusher on stepping. It's got that huge padded heel, it's got a really plush tongue, and it really keeps your foot in place because of that padding, but because the upper is kind of generally thicker, you've really got to pull those laces quite tight to get a real kind of secure feeling. And toe box wise, there's plenty of space, but actually, I think not quite as wide as the Cloudmonster, which I was quite surprised about. And the Cloudmonster in general feels like it's got kind of more wiggle room up and down because it's a much more minimal upper on that. Generally, I think the Cloudmonster is easier to get that kind of lock-in feel because you can pull the laces tight because there's just not as much stuff to kind of get in the way there. So I was the same size in both of them, but for me, I actually found the Monster is more roomy, but the lockdown is more secure. And stability-wise, I think both of them are kind of fairly similar, to be honest. Depending on where you read, the stack height is similar as well. So and the heel toe drop is the same. So you're not getting that much difference between them. I think just the Monster is slightly roomier, but also slightly more fitted once you kind of lock down.
On fit for me then, I ran true to size in UK 8.5 in both shoes. That's my regular size, and I found both fit pretty well. There's good room in the toe box on both of these shoes. The only thing that I'd say is different really here is I had to pay attention to how I laced the Cloudstratus. I need to pay a bit more attention to get a better hold across the midfoot, and they weren't quite as secure in the heel as the Cloudmonster, but I would still recommend going true to size in both these shoes.
From a run test point of view, this is super hard. I really love both of these running shoes. These are probably both, I think until I ran in this, the On Cloudmonster was definitely my favourite on running shoe. we all know I love like a max cushioned plush running shoe, and I really got that with the Cloudmonster. It is super kind of tall, and you do feel like you're wearing platforms when you first put it on, but it's got a great amount of kind of responsive bounce underfoot, and I've really enjoyed running in it. I definitely reach for it for kind of my easy runs, my long runs, and I found it really, really comfortable. The Cloudstratus, on the other hand, I've absolutely loved this shoe. It's definitely a lot plusher than the Cloudmonster. It's the same midsole foam, but this is double cloud tech, and you do kind of feel like you're sinking into the shoe a little bit more. So I would say it's definitely kind of a plush shoe, whereas it's still kind of a max cushion shoe, but it's not got the same kind of sink in feel underfoot. I'd definitely say they're both probably best suited for kind of easy miles, longer runs, but there's a good amount of cushioning in both, and they are a similar underfoot experience, but I'd say the Cloudstratus is definitely a kind of softer, plusher ride. And I think if you're using a shoe for walking as well as running, this is definitely the better pick, because this has kind of got this exaggerated, you're a lot higher off the ground. It doesn't feel as comfy going out for a walk. It definitely rolls you forward a little bit more, and it's definitely more of a kind of running shoe.
I tested the Monster and the Stratus together on the treadmill, first of all, both feet, and then one of each, and then also on the road. And I think particularly on the treadmill, when I was running one foot each, the difference that I felt between the shoes was really not that much once I got going. When I was slower, I could really feel that plushness more in the Stratus, but I think, to be honest, most of that actually came from the fact that the insole is just slightly thicker, rather than any kind of extra squish coming from that double layer of clouds. And as soon as I got running, I actually would have struggled to remember which foot was in which, to be honest with you. When I went 2 feet in each kind of shoe, I felt the difference a bit more in kind of just how the run felt. So I think the Monster, it's the rocker feels a bit more aggressive, although they've both got the nylon speedboard, they've both got Helium super foam, they're both the same heel toe drop, but I think maybe just that lightness of the Monster, it's just slightly lighter, means that you notice that kind of rocker and you're given the effect of it a little bit more. When I ran in the Stratus, it definitely kind of felt heavier. I didn't feel like there was any impetus to pick up at all. Whereas in the Monster, at a push, you could go for tempo. You wouldn't want to use it for a big speed session, but you feel like you can pick up a bit, and actually it does kind of warm into a run. Whereas I think the Stratus feels very much like you're meant to plod along with it. That said, I've not run that many miles in them yet, so maybe it's the kind of the Superfoam will warm up the Helion. But I think definitely the Stratus is a much kind of clumpier shoe and not noticeably squishier. So I don't think it really hits that kind of maximalist squishy shoe brief, if that's what it's going for.
So for my run test, I've done well over 100 miles in the On Cloudmonster and around 20 miles in the Cloudstratus 3 so far. And that's at a mix of paces on road and some light off-road. I'm a big fan of the Cloudmonster as a pretty good daily trainer that's best for miles at the easier end of things. For me, the On Cloudstratus 3, I'm a little less convinced by overall. It's another perfectly reliable, happy cushion cruiser. It's just not wowed me when I've taken it out for those runs that I've done so far. Now, I've also done a mile with one shoe on each foot, and here's what I found. So I've just done my side-by-side mile. I've got the Cloudmonster on the left foot, I've got the Cloudstratus on the right foot. And I think I agree with what a lot of the other run testers have said. There's not a huge amount to choose between these shoes. If you close your eyes when you're in them now, the stack height feels pretty much the same. I think on foot, the Cloudstratus, there's a little bit more room in the toe box. There's a bit more width and wiggle room. There's a bit more length as well. Whereas the Cloudmonster feel a bit more compact, a little bit more tight around the foot. It's a bit more dialed in terms of the overall fit. Then underfoot on the ride, the difference here for me, the key difference anyway, is in that rockering. The Cloudmonster, the rocker is a lot more pronounced for me. I get a lot more kind of forefoot action. So I feel like I'm rolling on my forefoot a lot quicker into my next step. I'm sort of through this motion a lot quicker. With the Cloudstratus, it feels a little flatter. It's a bit more kind of heely. Your landing, it's a little bit flatter. It's ever so slightly softer in the landing, I think. It takes a little bit longer just to respond back. Whereas with the Cloudmonster, it's almost like your toe goes down, you're rolled through, and then you're up and off again pretty quickly. The result is a slightly firmer ride, I think, in the Cloudmonster, and it's a slightly snappier, more responsive ride for me as a result, and I prefer it overall. It just feels a little bit more nimble, a little bit more agile. It's a bit lighter, it's a bit more compact on the foot. The whole shoe kind of comes with you a little bit more than the Cloudstratus, which, because of that extra length, it just feels like you're having to work a little bit harder to bring the shoe with you, and it's not pushing you along in terms of the rockering and the response as much as you're going to get from the Cloudmonster. In terms of stability, I wouldn't say there's an awful lot to choose between them here. Perhaps, I think, a little bit more for me in the Cloudstratus, but it's really marginal. This isn't, I wouldn't be choosing one of these shoes based on stability. I think they both do a really good job of being good, stable shoes. Overall comfort on the foot, I think my preference here is for the Cloudmonster. Just feels a little bit more natural. I prefer the fit, and yeah, overall it just feels like a shoe that's a little bit more disappearing than the Cloudstratus. I know both these shoes are built for long miles in kind of cushioned comfort. The one thing I would say is I think that the Cloudmonster are probably a more versatile shoe. I think this is a shoe that you can get away with doing pickups. You can do faster miles in them. I think the Cloudstratus, for me anyway, I struggle a bit more with that. They're not a shoe that I would choose to go and run faster miles. They are a shoe that I would happily choose to go and plod around in, get your head up and just enjoy the scenery. They are that kind of shoe, that kind of long, slow Sunday run where you're just out to get some miles under the belt. That's what they excel at, but I actually think that the Cloudmonster can do that, and it can do a whole lot more.
These shoes, they both have the clouds, although the Stratus has a kind of double cloud system. They've both got helium foam. They've both got the nylon speedboard. They've got a similar stack height, depending on where you read, like not that much difference. They've got the same drop. To be honest, there's not that much difference. The main difference is the weight. So for my women's size 7, the Stratus is 271 grams and the Monster is 259 grams. So there's quite a weight difference there. But other than that, these shoes feel much of a muchness. There's a bit more plushness around it maybe in the Stratus, and the thing I think is I don't feel like I need loads of plushness in my shoes. I'm not that kind of person. My feet get quite hot quite quickly, so I don't want loads of padding. So naturally that's not really a draw for me. If I'm going for long slow runs, I would rather run in something like the Cloud Flyer that felt kind of noticeably soft but a bit responsive. Rather than something which is sort of supposed to be max cushioned, but actually it still feels quite hard. And I'm not really getting any of that speedboard benefit, I don't think. So the Monster for me is definitely the winner out of these two, because the Monster at least has that lightness. It kind of, when you step into it, you think, this is a light shoe, I should be able to clip along with this, even though it's still quite a big chunky shoe and it really protects you from the road. And you've got that kind of, long, easy run kind of feel, and there's the option to pick up with it. So I personally don't really see where the Stratus fits in now that they've got the Monster. And that was kind of my initial feeling when I first tried it on, and this kind of comparison has really cemented that. The Monster is cheaper now, it's lighter, you've got pretty much the same feel, just slightly less padding, but not really enough to make any difference. So I don't really quite know why you'd go for the Stratus, to be honest.
So my verdict then, well, if I'm choosing between these two shoes, it's an easy one for me. I'd take the Cloudmonster over the Cloudstratus 3. I think it's a more natural shoe on the foot. I like the slightly firmer ride. I find it more responsive thanks to the rocker, and more light and agile because of the weight saving that you've got by comparison. I also think it's plenty plush enough for long run comfort that the Stratus tries to cover off, but that more compact feel and more snappy ride gives it a few more gears over the Stratus 3. If you want a slightly more luxe, cushy ride, then the Stratus 3 might be better for you, but I personally think the Cloudmonster does everything that the Stratus does and more at the sort of faster paces. Plus it's cheaper, so that would be my recommendation. The On Cloudmonster would be the shoe that I choose.
So my verdict, which would I buy? This is super tough. I love both of these shoes, but I think I'd actually go for the Cloudstratus over the Cloudmonster, just because it is a bit plusher, and I love a really soft, cushioned running shoe. If you're not as bothered by a shoe being really kind of sink in, comfort feel, you're going to love the Cloudmonster. You're going to love both, but I just think this has got a really kind of soft plush experience, which is just super nice on tired legs. If you're kind of marathon training and you want a running shoe that you can put on for your easy runs and your long runs, this has definitely got that kind of sink in feel that you get with something like the New Balance 1080 or the Nike Invincible 3. Like when you sink into the shoe and it feels soft, you get that here, and I've really, really loved running in it. I love running in both. It's really hard to pick, but for me, the Cloudstratus edges ahead a little bit, so I would pick this.
So there you have it. That has been our head-to-head review of the On Cloudstratus 3 versus the On Cloudmonster. I hope you found it useful. Don't forget to hit us up in the comments if you have any questions about these shoes. Hit like and subscribe and ring that bell to be notified about when more videos coming up on the channel. Soon we'll have more head-to-heads of shoes. We've got some really exciting big reviews coming up, as well as some big videos around carbon shoes and the like. So you want to be notified about those. You have to ring that bell once you subscribe. But otherwise, it's been an absolute pleasure to talk to you about these two shoes, and we hope to see you again soon on the Run Testers. Happy running, people.